Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, August 19th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Notre Dame game is in 15 days. Yes, just over 2 weeks. The game against Michigan in 99 days. Yes, just under 100. Double digits. Season's almost here. Which means the end of the season's almost here. That's not as good, but the season's almost here. Let's focus on that. And a big piece of the future of the Big Ten Conference and the sport of college football on the whole kind of fell into place on Thursday. I think it's the kind of news that a lot of fans may have just sort of glossed over or just kind of looked and went, oh, that's interesting, and moved on with their day. But it feels like it's going to be a big factor in what happens next in the sport. That is the announcement of the new Big Ten TV deal. The league will be making more than billion with a B, $billion every year for 7 seasons. Starting with 2023, games will appear on Fox, CBS, NBC, and also the Peacock streaming service. There's a lot to unpack here. I'm joined by Kevin Noon of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Before shifting to the world of online Buckeye coverage, he spent a big chunk of his career, just like I did, working in the TV business. Kevin, thanks for being here.
$1 billion. I mean, geez, what strange times that we live in here. But we all knew it was coming, and they hit that number. And the question is, is it 7 years? For $7 billion or $8 billion? I think there's still some numbers that aren't out there. We had the chance to talk to Gene Smith today, director of athletics at Ohio State, and he kind of no-sold the numbers at that point. But exciting times if you're a member institution of the Big Ten. Get those deep pockets ready for lots of money to fall into them.
Yeah, you hear about schools having financial issues or athletic departments having financial issues. You don't get the sense you're going to have a lot of Big Ten schools having financial issues in the short to medium term. And, the top line numbers are massive. We don't have a final per school payout per year right now, but I think it's safe to say it is going to be, whatever it is, an enormous jump over what it was, what was already one of, if not maybe the biggest deals in all of college sports. The impact of, this is going to be on ABC, NBC, Fox, and, that is potentially a really big thing, and I think something people maybe don't completely understand. So can you sort of explain, being on 3 separate broadcast networks throughout the day, why is that a big deal? Why is that an important thing for the league and its fans?
Well, I mean, you want to be able to spread out your product as much, and they've got these marquee windows. Fox at noon Eastern, CBS at 3:30 Eastern, NBC, whatever that's going to be, 7:30 or whatever they decide. It means more eyeballs. You're not going to have games. I mean, all these things are going to be over the air in terms of those 3 top games. Those are all over the air. You don't have cable. You don't have satellite. That's fine. With a digital antenna, you can pick all of that up. It means exposure. It means as the college football playoff looks to expand and have more partners, more than likely than just ESPN. I think all of that is very important. But, you're looking at the Big Ten Conference, which, this deal starts in 23 and then in 24 becomes truly a national conference with the additions of USC and UCLA. It's just great in terms of the conference. I mean, yeah, I think we'll talk about some things that could be perceived downsides as well, but just the wide spread of the league is going to be important, and just how you're going to have all of these partners there. And one other thing that maybe is being underreported now, it's only a 7-year deal, so the Big Ten is going to be able to get back in line, get up there, and get seconds again, and probably break the bank once again, because you've got other conferences. I mean, the Big Ten is signing a deal now, and then they're going to be able to sign another deal, while the ACC is still going to be sitting there making whatever its money is in terms of its deal with ESPN at that point, and their rights deal isn't up until the mid-2030s.
Yeah, I think their deal was up after the 2035 season, might be 2036, but yeah, and they're making about $30 million a year, which, if this is just a ballpark number, say $75 to $100 million is where this ends up. You're lapping the ACC, and then you have the opportunity to potentially lap them again in 2030 when all this stuff is up again. And, the broadcast piece of this, I think the digital antenna thing that you just brought up, that feels like that's going to be something that people aren't necessarily thinking a ton about right now, but 2, 3, 4 years from now, when everyone is real sick of paying for, everyone has done the cord cutting thing at this point, it feels like, but now everyone's kind of going, wait, I'm paying $10 to 47 different companies right now. I don't want to do this. Well, you can stop paying some of those companies, many of those companies, and still get these games if you live anywhere close to a major city over the air, like Kevin said. So that feels like that's going to be a big thing. One thing Kevin mentioned, the USC, UCLA, they get to the Big Ten in 2024. That's also when CBS sort of officially finally arrives full-time with the Big Ten is 2024, because they still have that 3:30 SEC game in 2023. So they will have only a limited Big Ten lineup next year. I think they said 7 games, something like that, before that full rotation kicks in for 2024. And then at that point, the networks are actually going to take turns selecting first for games each week. That is something, again, we had sort of wondered, is Fox just going to have the first pick every week? No, they're going to kind of do similar to how Fox and ESPN, ABC have done it for the past few years, where they kind of have a draft of weeks. We've talked about that on various morning shows before. But I guess, we have not said ESPN, ABC until we were talking about the past. So that gets to the next point. No ESPN, no ABC, at least for now. Potentially, if they expand the conference again, there might be an additional rights package that ESPN could pick up at that point. But right now, no ESPN, no ABC. To you, Kevin, what kind of impact is that going to have on the Big Ten's coverage on those networks and potentially, the Big Ten's brand on the whole?
Right. You have to wonder what it means for College Game Day. I mean, I don't think that College Game Day for ESPN, their flagship pregame show, is going to completely ignore the Big Ten. But if there are 2 games that are close and one of them is one of their properties and one of them isn't, I'm not exactly sure why they would go and cover Ohio State, Penn State versus Alabama, LSU, or something like that. I mean, you've got to protect your lead in. I'm going to use all these TV terms that's there. You want to make sure that you've got, you're protecting what you're spending your money on at that point. You got to wonder what this means for SportsCenter. You got to wonder what this means for College Football Final. I think that you're going to see a case of in College Football Final, which is their wrap-up show once all the games are done. Maybe you get one Big Ten game of the day in the A block, and then everything else might be buried in the D block. There certainly have been people who have felt that. I mean, certainly Paul Feinbaum out there is a mouthpiece for the SEC, but I mean, even Joe Tessitore has kind of come out and taken some shots at the Big Ten. Is that going to become more of the standard company line at that point? Because there's no reason, there's no sharing in the success of the Big Ten for the Walt Disney Company at this point. They have no stake in the game. Now, again, that's something that could change. They could maybe carve out something for basketball. If there's obviously expansion and the Big Ten gets to 20, I mean, there certainly has been talk about there might be some escalator clauses to where the $7 billion or $8 billion, again, depending on whose numbers you're looking at, could swell to as much as $10 billion. So, maybe the door isn't closed there. But I think one of the other things, too, is that people are just used to looking for product on the ESPN channels. People don't realize that one of the biggest costs of their cable/satellite/whatever bill is the carriage rights for the ESPN channels. And I don't think anybody's just magically going to say, well, I don't need ESPN anymore. I mean, there's still going to be a lot of stuff on there that people are going to watch, but it's a brave new world. It is a brave new world when you sit there and you look at this situation of where there's not going to be a partnership with ABC or ESPN for the first time in really forever.
Yeah, and that does feel like that's going to be a big deal. The interesting piece of that, ESPN right now, you have to pay for the cable bundle, or you have to pay Hulu, or you have to pay whoever your TV provider is right now to get ESPN. They are talking about, there's been rumors that they're looking at launching what is called an over-the-top service, basically, a Netflix equivalent just for ESPN. You can stream all your ESPN stuff live without having to pay for cable. The price point they're talking about that is $30 a month. So, there are going to be a lot of people who don't want to pay $30 a month, to pay for ESPN if they get rid of their cable. So that, that is potentially coming in the next, within the life of this Big Ten deal, I think is a reasonable timetable to think that could be coming. So that's another reason, if you're on those free TV channels, that is potentially a very big deal. But yes, there are definitely some downsides as well to not being with the worldwide leader for the foreseeable future. Just ask the NHL 15 years ago. Before we continue the conversation, we do need to take a minute to let you know about something else that's going to be happening this week, in addition to a Big Ten TV deal. It is finally Ohio State's turn for big news Saturday at Home Field Apparel. Home Field makes incredibly comfortable, truly unique shirts for colleges and big and small, all across the country. They release a new collection each Saturday, an event they call Big New Saturday. This week, it is finally Ohio State's turn after years of waiting. Yes, it is finally here. The designs are all just incredibly cool. Lots of vintage-looking stuff you've definitely never seen before, not shirts that are going to look like everyone else's shirts. You can get all of it for 15% off with the promo code Buckeye Weekly, all one word, Buckeye Weekly. That Ohio State collection drops at noon on Saturday, and there are several people in my house already very excited for that. You should be too, hopefully. Go to homefieldapparel.com, use the code Buckeye Weekly, all one word, Buckeye Weekly, to save 15% on your first order. All right, done with the commercial, on with the show. We got a chance to talk to Ohio State Athletic Director Gene Smith on Thursday. One thing that was interesting to me was how much was still not finalized yet, even with the announcement out. One of the big questions was about the Peacock streaming deal. They are going to get 8 games each year, but so far it's not clear how those will get picked, whether teams are going to have certain amounts of times they're required to play there, all that stuff. That, of course, Peacock is a streaming network and something that a lot of people probably don't have, and one of those things that's, $5 more out the door every month if you want it. So, how big of an issue is that going to be, that you have these games on Peacock? And then why is that a big deal from Peacock's perspective to get those games on their network?
I actually was on Sirius XM radio on Thursday morning to kind of talk about some issues like that. And it brings me back to when ESPN2 launched, and they had to put a lot of programming there. And this was, right at the beginning when they were all dressed like lumberjacks and they had the weird chyron with the upper lower. I mean, it just looked really weird. But then they put Duke and UNC on there in men's basketball and said, well, you better pick us up or you're not going to get to see some of this stuff. With Peacock, it's a little bit different because, okay, that's a matter of getting your cable service or your satellite service to add a channel, which, isn't always easy, but, Fox and BTN were able to get that done, and it went down to the final minutes with certain cable outlets to pick up BTN before, its launch. But here it's different because this is a streaming service. This is a case of where if you don't have a smart TV, I mean, you're going to have to go out and get, a Roku stick or a Fire Stick or something like that. Like my mom doesn't have internet. Fortunately, my mom doesn't really care about athletics, so she wouldn't be able to watch any of that. What does this mean for bars? I mean, because you're used to being able to put all these games on because it's a matter of, okay, well, we know this is going to be on ESPN, and this is going to be on the Deuce, and this is going to be on ESPN News, and this will be on FS1. Peacock's a brave new world. So honestly, my solution to this, let's just make Peacock the official network of Rutgers, and then we're fine, except for when Rutgers and Ohio State play, and then we don't have to worry about it. But I think what we're also going to see, too, is that we're going to see a lot of Olympic sports that are going to be on Peacock, and there's going to have to be a landing spot for basketball, and I think we're going to see a lot of that over on Peacock as well. So, this may not be a 3-month acquisition for people of where they get it for football season. I think that you're going to be watching reruns of The Blacklist on Peacock along with all your favorite Big Ten programming. But, when it comes to the 8 games, I don't really see a case of where you spend $350 million to bury Ohio State on Peacock when you can get much better ad rates having Ohio State on NBC.
Yeah, and we mentioned earlier the game selection process. It's not like the Ohio State Michigan game is going to be on Peacock. That's something that is going to be selected long before Peacock gets a chance to pick a game. So look for that to continue to be on Fox for the most part, I would expect, for the foreseeable future. But Ohio State, Arkansas State, Ohio State, Rutgers, whatever the equivalent of those are in 2025. Well, maybe we'll have to see. They're also making a big change to the scheduling process. We don't know who Ohio State's playing in 2025. They have traditionally scheduled games 5 or more years out. That is going to change, though. Gene Smith said that moving forward, you're not going to know next year's conference schedule until October. Now, that might make it a little harder for teams and fans and everyone else to plan ahead. But it also kind of gives you so much more flexibility, which is good for schools. Probably also something the TV networks want. So you sort of avoid the issues you will run into scheduling non-conference games 10 years out when you schedule Washington, and Washington is really good. And then by the time the Washington game actually rolls around, Washington's a terrible team. Ohio State has run into that with Washington. Ohio State has run into that with Cal over the years. Lots of those, you think you're getting one thing, and then the package arrives, and it's like, this is not what I ordered. You sort of avoid that a little bit by only scheduling a year out. That means it's probably also really good for the TV networks. And, to me, this feels like a move that is long overdue. And if it took, a huge TV deal to make it happen, fine. This seems like this is going to benefit everyone.
Well, and not to jump ahead, too, but I think if you go away from divisions as well, I mean, do we lose home and home type of situations? You generally knew that a lot of times, I mean, first of all, you knew in terms of with your division, all right, you're going to play Michigan at home in even years, and you're going to play Michigan on the road in odd years, and then you need to sit there and flip Penn State with that. And now, I mean, anything's on the table at this point. There might be protected rivalries and some things of that nature that are going to remain on the schedule, but you could sit there and play Wisconsin at Camp Randall and then not get the return date because you don't know necessarily what the schedule is going to look like, and if they're going to do something in the NFL model of where it's going to be a case of, okay, the higher you finish, the tougher the degree of difficulty your schedule is going to be, and if you struggle, you might get a lighter schedule. So it's not great for those of us that are the travel planners for a website who go in and like to schedule hotels a month or a year in advance. But we'll figure it out. I think it's an interesting and exciting move. We're still going to know non-conference schedules well into the 2030s at this point. But the issue is, if we end up having some sort of major chasm between major college football and the NC2A and anything else, I'm not really sure that I trust any game much beyond 2026 on the schedule at this point. So don't be booking those Alabama tickets for 2028 quite yet.
Yeah, that's I don't think there's a lot of certainty in anything right now. The uncertainty is about the only certainty there is around college football. You mentioned the fact that they're going to do away with divisions. Gene Smith said he didn't know any specifics on that yet in terms of, exactly how they do that, or protected rivalries or whatever. I suspect Ohio State and Michigan will continue to play every year in whatever form that takes. They didn't know conference tiebreakers for the conference title game. Still, I mean, that to me, that's another thing, Kevin, that it feels just, that is really interesting that this is something we've kind of talked about for a long time, and, the imbalance between the East and the West. This is another thing that it's finally happening, and whether it's for TV purposes or something else, this is probably good in terms of, competitive balance in the league, making that Big Ten championship game a more interesting game every year, and probably a whole lot of other areas too.
Yeah, that Big Ten championship game that will not always be on Fox over the next 7 years. It's going to be on Fox, only 4 of them. CBS, I don't remember if CBS has it twice and NBC has it once, or the other way around. So, yeah, it'll be good for competitive balance. I mean, do we see a pod system? I mean, there's just so many things that can be there, but, it was interesting to hear Gene Smith kind of come out there and say, no, I'm for this. I'm for this, but we heard a lot. We heard a lot on Thursday morning or afternoon, depending on when it happened, of Gene Smith saying those details haven't been worked out yet. Those details haven't been worked out yet. I mean, obviously they crossed a giant finish line with getting the rights deal put together, but nobody out there believes that the Big Ten is done expanding. We had, Pat Forty had something, some other people had some things out there saying Big Ten sources, people close to the situation saying that the Big Ten isn't necessarily done yet. And just to throw another audible in the situation, very interesting thread out there on social on Thursday morning from John Wilner about what happens if the University of California system and the government out there really puts the kibosh on UCLA being able to join the conference. So, the more we think we know, the less we actually know. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, it's a great time to be a sports fan. It's a great time to be a sports writer. There's just so much intrigue to talk about. The thing that just seems to be the most stable out there is that Ohio State's probably going to be a really good team this year.
Yeah, Ohio State's probably going to be pretty good this year. Should be good for the foreseeable future, I think. But yeah, there is a lot to talk about. There is a lot to, a lot of questions that we're still going to be kind of rooting through to figure out answers on for, the program, the Ohio State program, the Big Ten, college football on the whole. There is a whole lot that we're going to be sorting out this fall. And a great place to talk about all of that is BuckeyeHuddle.com. Boom, transition. How about that? And BuckeyeHuddle.com, of course, the site that Kevin and I both work for, just launched this week. Also Tony Gerdeman, Mark Givler, Alex Gleitman, Ross Fulton, Justin Whitlatch. Just such an incredible team. Devin Radcliffe. We've got recruiting guys. We've got team coverage guys. We've got lots of X's and O's guys. We ran a little poll on our board. Just what are people kind of interested in hearing more about on, pre and post game coverage? And there's a lot of interest in X's and O's stuff. Great news. We got 3 X's and O's guys. I'm pretty sure that leads the nation in X's and O's guys at one website. Lots of great content that's going to be coming from those guys this fall. You can find it all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We've got all sorts of really fun and unique members-only kind of content we've got coming this fall. Lots of great content. Alex Gleitman just released a new recruiting update. Mark Givler just released a new recruiting update. Lots of great content. Check it all out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you on Monday.